What's going on, everybody? The Red Sun lives, and I have done it. I have cracked the code. Nobody asked for this code cracked, but I did it anyway. You want to know why I did it? Because I have a lot of free time. Just a lot more free time than I probably should have. If I actually gave a shit about a lot of stuff, and I did, and I had a lot more confidence, I would probably be one of those assholes on Twitter who just sends out a whole bunch of stuff because they have way too much free time. But that's not the point of today. The point of today is that, oh, you're probably wondering why I'm not doing a class or ass video since those do super well. Fuck you. I'm doing this instead because I felt like it. And I couldn't think of an anime that I had seen recently. So, I'm gonna go on with this. The code has been cracked. I have found the circle of cringe. Of cringe. Cringe. Alright. The circle of cringe is a circular pattern, kind of like the circle of life. The only difference is that this is a renewable source of how to find cringe and create it. This is a motherfucking scientifically accurate. I didn't pass chemistry all that well. I did pass. I didn't pass that well. But this is foolproof. Foolproof. I have actually written somewhat of a script for this because I needed to write this down because shower thoughts are very useful. They're very goddamn useful. You should figure them out. Now, according to my notes, this is a composition book, shut up. The circle of cringe starts with not cringe. It starts with popularity. Because popularity is where everything starts in mass media. Something becomes popular, and that's how it's created. It is then put into the public eye because of popularity. But everything plus time creates a new thing. The way chemical reactions always require something to happen for a new object to be changed. There's a difference between physical and chemical reactions. Physical reactions are what happen when something changes it but doesn't change the item itself. Like you set a piece of paper on fire. The paper being on fire now turns it to ash. Chemical reaction. But squishing a ball of clay doesn't change what it is. It's still clay. That being said, nobody ever takes into the fact that time may be an optimal thing to push forward for it. At least nobody that I've heard of. Or maybe I'm stupid and I'm just way out of the loop. Time can be as effective at changing things as fire would be to paper. I know I sound like I'm high right now. I swear to God I'm not. That being said, cringe always starts at popularity. Popularity of something plus time equals cringe. Popularity plus time equals cringe. Because my biggest reference that I can use is any meme that's come out in the past 5 or so years. Whenever meme culture started, that plus time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be a week. It doesn't matter. Some people will say, we must protect the queen, my brother. Immediately, that became cringy about a week after its popularity died down. It started to have a resurgence at some point, but that didn't work out all that well. A lot of memes died out in popularity. Alrighty. Or, let's say, another thing that could be considered popular. Like the way that everybody, for a long period of time, a lot of people, when they first came out, liked Nickelback. Alright? I know I made a video about this prior, but fuck you. I'm gonna keep doing it. Now, Nickelback was originally a liked band. Everybody liked them, but they did sound generic. They had a good sound to them. The vocal chords of Chad Kroeger were really spot on, and he did a good job at what he did. But they were super generic sounding. They were popular all the way until their popularity skyrocketed to their highest point, where overpopularity pushed it down to cringe. They were popular for too long, cringe. Cringe. Very similar thing happens with a lot of other bands. People had the same thing with Imagine Dragons when the song Natural got super popular. They immediately turned to cringe after a certain period of time. The song High Hopes by Panic at the Disco, everybody liked that song, but it played on the radio too goddamn often and people started using it for everything. Main one that I can think of that had the highest like to dislike ratio is the Black Eyed Peas. The Black Eyed Peas have the highest thing. They were popular on a constant raise of insanity all the way up until they got to the Super Bowl level. And then, out of nowhere, everybody says they're a shit band. Why is that? Because they were popular for too long. So popularity plus time equals cringe. Cringe plus time equals retro. Because a lot of people don't understand that when something is cringy and they don't focus on it, it doesn't just disappear. When something is cringy and then it changes over a period of time, it then turns into something that is looked back upon fondly but never actually seen as that great. A lot of people tend to try to focus this towards, let's say, video games for my best source. Is that a video game itself can be considered bad and people may not like it, or maybe there's a dedicated fan following that's about, let's say, 1% of the amount of people that actually saw it, and they stuck with it past the cringe point and all the way into the retro part. The retro is where people look fondly on it as a good game, or they look at all the positive aspects of it, like Duke Nukem Forever. I think that's one. Like, all of my friends who've seen it, all of my friends who played it, say that they look back on it fondly and they enjoy the thing altogether. See, they have a positive view on it, but they haven't played it in a long period of time. They have rose colored glasses for what they're seeing. But I actually did research for this one. Jesus Christ, I'm becoming legitimate. And then, when you look forward into it, retro means that it was hated a long time ago. That's not the actual definition, that's what I've garnered. Because every review that I've seen of Duke Nukem Forever, or Duke Nukem Forever, Duke Nukem 3D, whatever the fuck, the one with wall titties, that one. I looked up reviews of it on major companies' websites, on YouTube, fan-made reviews. Angry Joe, very good YouTuber. Check him out. He has 3 million subscribers. You've probably already seen him. Whatever the fuck. Alright. When you get to him, you start noticing all these reviews say that it's shit and that it could have been better. It's not what they wanted. Because they were around when it first came out, when they saw that it was shit, when they didn't have the rose-colored glasses. Retro is what happens when rose-colored glasses block what you used to think. And that is what happens when you get cringe plus time, retro. Things that were popular when they came out shit the bed and became cringy, and then had a small bump in popularity. Now, the next one. The next one is a little bit of a wiggle pattern. Retro plus hipster culture. Retro plus time equals hipster culture. Things that are impractical, that fell out of fashion, that people didn't exactly see as a highly rated thing. Things that are older, that suddenly that 1% of people that stuck with it, that liked it when it was popular, stuck through it past the cringe, and were the garnered fan base during the retro period, suddenly started seeing that they were the only ones who remembered / like it. So they grow into a form of their own culture. Let's just call it hipster culture, because that's what it's known as. The people who look back on something the way that they feel has a superiority complex, where they can think, oh, I puff my chest out and wear my shirt proudly across it, and then people will immediately know that I have interests that they don't. Look at me for my popularity, and look at me for my changing things that I enjoy. You'll never understand it. And that's it. That's where it becomes a small little thing that can be brought upwards, like handlebar mustaches. They were seen in all these different videos, in all the not video, in these pictures of historical people who garnered fancy facial features because they didn't have shit to do back then. If you go back 150 years, the reason everybody is so crisp and clean cut around the facial features and so built is because they had a shitty life and they had to work hard to become that built. And anything that they had time to work on, they perfected. You want to know why there are stones cut so cleanly that back then they had to create they had to use they should have used tools, but they did it so perfectly that we can't even replicate it with the tools that we have. That's not because they had some secret alien technology like the History Channel wants you to believe. That is because they had so much free time on their hands and no way to voice their shitty opinions like we do. Thank you, Twitter, for proving my point once again. That they just sat at home and thought, guess I'll make this. Why do you think knight's armor is so intricately woven and created? Why do you think swords from like the medieval times are so insanely sharp and well balanced? The hilts themselves took months to make. You want to know why? Because we couldn't make those in a year because they had free time on their hands that no person ever would fucking have. Now, it's just imagine the people back then. They just decided to create that. They made it as best as they could, but then they slowly died out of popularity. And people who continued to maintain them, this small grouping of people, slowly led into people who were much more proud of it than they probably should have. I'm not going to do this because I know that's a stupid joke and I'm not getting through with it if it gets up past my head. This small grouping of people slowly spread until it was this bigger group of people, well, who thought of it as a superiority complex, where they were more proud of it, they puffed their chest out. And people started noticing it again. The handlebar mustache, as you will, or the big Civil War beard on people who don't fucking deserve the Civil War beard. Then, if you go up one more step, hipster culture plus time equals mass marketing. I know that's a jump, but trust me. I've been holding my little notebook because I wrote most of this down, and my hand's getting tired. Now, once you get to hipster culture, it's very easy for something to be pushed into the spotlight. Right. The view of something that used to be popular a long time ago that's being shoved right back into a resurgence because these vocal people, these people who were much more proud of what they had than they probably should have been, they couldn't see it as, oh, this is my little niche likes and dislikes, so I'm going to view it as such and keep it to myself and maybe share it with somebody that I find friendly or somebody that is in my family so I can continue on this and have multiple interests. No, they get fucking loud about it. You ever wonder why there's shows on whoever gives a fuck whatever channel they have all the cars on? Not like NASCAR. I mean like the ones where it's like my name's Bill and my name's Fred and we're gonna show you and we're Grease Monkey, whatever the fuck that show is. And then they remake classic cars. Those people wouldn't have existed if there wasn't some asshole from like the 1950s who held on to his grandpa's shitty Duesenberg, whatever the fuck. He had a Model T that he found, and then he like restored it, and then he kept driving it around, and everybody was like, wow, that car looks really cool, that truck looks really cool, that whatever piece of shit that looks like it's gonna fall apart at any moment, that looks really cool. They started repopularizing that idea all the way until it became a growing form of hipster culture, where it gained massive amounts of groupings, and then time and time of that culture growing, ended up finding a way of marketing it. Something that was something that's long since passed suddenly becomes popular enough to where somebody is willing to sponsor it in a high way, to which case it will be brought back to where it was in its own popularity. Like, I don't like this. I don't like this comparison, but I was watching YouTube a little bit ago. Yes, I'm on YouTube, and I like watching YouTube. It's a conundrum. I don't understand it myself. Probably because I'm so superior. No, I'm kidding. That when I was watching it, there was an ad that played. Fuck you ads. Fuck you ads. And what happened is that as it was going forward, as the thing went on, it was something for the anniversary of World of Warcraft. Never played it. It's probably fun, but I don't want to associate myself with probably one of the most toxic fandoms and cultures amongst them. Like, dude, if you're compared to League of Legends on your amount of salt, I'm gonna wait for your popularity to die down a little bit. But it's been 15 years, so I'm probably not gonna get to play it because that's a lot of salt, and people aren't gonna be able to shovel it as much as you guys create it. But for this World of Warcraft commercial, what happened is that it showed a whole bunch of people singing in a tavern as like they walked around. They were like, they had like this old English sort of like toss a coin to your witch, but not as catchy as that. Some stupid shit. And then, as it was about to get to the end, where everybody was at their crescendo of song, this one guy screams out, Leroy Jenkins! And then tackles somebody, kind of out of order, because you're supposed to say Leroy and then rush in and say Jenkins as you're tackling the person. But it didn't work out that way. Hey, because they didn't fully understand the meme. Now, that meme was created a long time ago in the very dawn of when memes were created. It became popular, or it became cringy at a certain point. Right? Then it became funny to look back on it as retro. The people who still remembered it and who haven't moved on to who haven't moved on to further popular things, because meme culture is out of its goddamn mind. And then after it got past the retro state where people look back on it fondly but haven't really said anything about it, it moved on to hipster culture, where people saw it as kind of a joke. And then it hit to where Blizzard made that commercial, decided to create a mass marketing form, which will eventually lead to a second form of popularity because of how long it's going to be advertised, if it will be advertised. I don't know. This is the first time I've seen the commercial, and it will eventually loop itself back into this form of infinite popularity and recycled workings. Like I said, everything plus time eventually leads into the circle of cringe. Now, this may be the circle of popularity, depending on where you decide to start, but it always passes through cringe. Leroy Jenkins was created, it became popular, it became cringy after a certain point when it became popular, it became retro when everybody decided to stop saying it and people thought it was funny but kept it to themselves. It became kind of this inside joke amongst people who still knew it. It became a hipster culture form after people decided to get a little bit smug about the fact that they knew it, and people who didn't care about internet culture back then created this sort of bubble where they could show off how shiny their bubble is because it has a joke that only a certain amount of people understand, mostly because nobody else gave a shit about it. But that bubble of people who still understood and used it ended up becoming a popularity thing where it grew to a certain point where it was mass marketed in that ad that will eventually lead to another form of popularity, if it may be its own form of popularity or it may be a form of mockery in popularity. Because, here's the thing though, it doesn't have the same item recycled throughout the circle the whole time. There's a good chance that if it's marketed heavily with that same ad constantly playing, there's a good chance that once it gets to popularity again, it will be a form of ironic popularity. Because when I say plus time equals a new object, plus time doesn't necessarily mean that's all that's happening. If it goes from mass marketing to popularity over a span of time, there's a good chance that there's going to be a social filter that gets put through it. By saying Leroy Jenkins goes through the entire circle, gets the mass marketing, and then it's going to lead into popularity because of the mass marketing, there's a good chance that it's going to be pushed as an ironic thing, where you say it again as an inside joke about an inside joke. It's popular amongst people, so half the people who hear it will say, hey, oh, that was cool, and then say some stupid shit. But there's another half of the people that they're probably marketing to actually, who are going to say it again, and then somebody else is going to laugh at the fact that you said it because it was an ironic statement that led to its popularity again. It's a form of mock culture. As it creates its own as it becomes popular, it slowly dwindles down until a point of the lowest point where it becomes retro. It grows to hipster culture. It grows again till it's mass marketed, and then it gets split into two different forms of popularity. Alrighty, the bottom part being actual popularity, and the top part being mock popularity, where people will look down on it but still continue to say it. The kind of way people said, this bitch empty, yeet. The statement went around the full circle until it became popular enough to where it was in enough mediums that people continued to use it, but the people who still mean it dwindle in numbers, while the people who mockingly say it continue to rise in numbers until eventually it dies out again, and it creates this infinite loop of constantly branching people who will have a mocking system that once it gets to one point, it'll become genuinely popular, go around, it'll be mocked. The idea of it being mocked will go around until eventually it goes back into the circle of popularity where people don't understand why it was being mocked. It'll be brought up here all the way to the top of the circle at popularity, and then it will be mocked again for a ridiculous reason, and then it'll follow the circle. It's a form of popularity plus time equals cringe, but then cringe plus all these other possible statements will eventually lead to popularity again, but a negative form of popularity where it'll be joked about and continuously made fun of until eventually it dies down. People will look back on it fondly and continue to use it again in an actual term until eventually it makes its way around the circle to where it until it will again be mocked. It's an infinite cycle of switching perspectives on whether or not you say it as a joke because of how stupid it is, or you genuinely use it until eventually you decide to stop using it because you understand the stupidity. And I feel like I've confused some people. All the other people I've either made joke, they probably don't fucking understand what I'm saying at this point. Or the people who've actually been following along are like, yeah, it's not that hard to understand. Why are you making it seem like it's such a hard thing to understand? Because I feel like I'm over explaining it, even though it's just popular, goes around the circle, jokingly popular, or ironically popular. It gets to the top of the circle again, legitimately popular, ironically popular, legitimately popular, ironically popular. It's a functional circle that will eventually lead in and out of itself. And now that I've gone on a rant for this long amount of time, don't worry, I will be doing more class or ass videos for all the 2 people that watched it. But if more people watch it, hey, who am I to tell you what to do? Have a nice life. If you want to subscribe, I don't give a shit, but gives me a little bit more reason to keep doing these. But until then, I have been the Red Sun. This has been Do I want to keep doing more episodes? I might do more episodes of these. I'll do whatever I want. I'm the one with the channel. Until then, I have been the Red Sun. Wash your hands. Stay inside if you gotta. If you can't stay inside, uh, wear a gas mask. Like one of those Russian ones with a big filter in the front that makes you look like you're about to take someone to the gulag. No, seriously, wear a mask if you need. If you can't, wear a mask if you can. If you can't, breathe into your shirt. So, like I said it before, I'm the Red Sun. This has been Crackhead Theories. I don't know. I'll figure out the name if I decide to. And the Red Sun, setting for today. Bye, guys.